All right. So thank you everybody to joining in today. I hope you all can hear me. And let's just do a quick quality check. So I believe I'm audible. And then now we are live on LinkedIn. Okay, great. So let's begin with today's session. So I welcome you all to the first episode of INDO-MENA Corridor by LAFFAZ. And I'm Mohammed Asif, one of the co-founders and the CEO of LAFFAZ Media. I'm your host for today's session. So speaking of Indo-MENA corridor in general, for those who don't know, we know that we all have been going through tough times, and ever since we got hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, we actually leveraged this period to this slowdown to create a synergy for both tech startups in India and MENA alike. And that's how the Indo-MENA corridor came into implementation, and it took the 6 months period of time for all of us to craft this particular synergy for startups, for the startup ecosystem of India and the MENA region. So coming back to the core cognition, so it is highly unlikely that we as a startup platform find any Indian startup who is not seeking expansion across the Middle East, UAE, or Bahrain in general. So the liberal government policies and establishment of various VC funds and attractive startup hubs are no options, but now the prime target for every Indian startup to emerge and grow and expand internationally. So keeping these thoughts in mind, we did our research, and obviously everything is a paradox unless and until it is put in numbers. So we found that around $121 billion of the bilateral trade partnership happened between India and GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. And when it comes to UAE, India and UAE alone, there's a trade partnership of $57 billion for the financial year ending 2019. So before we dive deeper into today's discussion with our keynote speaker and our ecosystem partners, I would first like to do a quick introduction. So for this session, we have our ecosystem partner, Microsoft for Startups Middle East, which is a dedicated program for MENA-based B2B startups to help them scale successfully. Then we have our ecosystem partner, StartupScale360, a UAE-based startup ecosystem builder that connects all key stakeholders of the startup ecosystem. And our strategic partner, Mindhouse, a mind-body wellness startup, and strategic partner, PaidApps, one of the leading payment gateways in the MENA region, and that helps merchants accept payments online. And our outreach partner, UIncept, a mentorship and a scale-up program for Indian startups. And last but not the least, our supporting partner, Andro Public Relations, a Bahrain-based PR and communications company. And to lead this session, I am honored to welcome all eminent speakers: Pankaj Chaddah, co-founder of Mindhouse and India's food tech unicorn, Zomato; Roberto Croci, the managing director of Microsoft Startups Middle East; and Swethal Kumar, CEO and managing partner of StartupScale360. He's a former vice president of Mubadala and also an ex-Hub 71. So to start with, let us learn from our keynote speaker, Pankaj, about the expansion story of Zomato and Mindhouse from India to the Middle East. Glad to have you with us today, Pankaj. So before handing over the mic, I would like to ask you, as the history of Zomato tells us a lot about the expansion story of Zomato across Middle East. But starting with a food tech concept back in 2008 in India, then establishing its roots to the Middle East from 2012 onwards. On these lines, we would like you to enlighten us on how did you envision this expansion back in the days?
Sure. So first of all, glad to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me. It's great to see so much activity between India and the Middle East and North Africa. I think we as Zomato back in the day were also sort of one of the front runners in creating the corridor. So it's great to see where it has come today. I think we had started off Zomato for restaurant search and discovery in 2008 in India. And then by 2010-11, we had established a very strong presence in India as the market leader. And we started looking for markets outside of India. So UAE was one of the markets under consideration to begin with. Right? And restaurants are a city-to-city business. It's not like you're able to expand to the entire region at once. You pick a city to expand into, um, because you need a resident population to use restaurant discovery and food ordering. So at that time, we were looking at both Southeast Asia as well as Middle East. So the two top considerations in our heads at that time were Singapore and Dubai. And we looked at both the markets. I think both were fairly exciting, but we, we decided to go ahead with Dubai, and it was we received tremendous response. I think our growth in the region within the first 9 to 12 months of launch was faster than what we had seen in any city within India. And I think it was, you know, the nature of the city is such that there is a very um, tech savvy, young, as well as um, high discretionary income market in the UAE, right? And now also in the rest of the region. And there are also a lot of similarities to what we have in India to the Middle East region. I think a significant part of the population in UAE is from the subcontinent, right? And that helps, and that brings an extension to the consumer behavior in India to the Middle East, right? It's a slight extension, and on top of it, the beauty is that the region is also a melting pot of various uh, cultures, right? So you have a significant presence from North America, you have a significant presence from Europe, from Australia. And all of that actually helps us, or helped us think of how to build a product that's a consumer market fit even beyond the region. So I think UAE particularly and the uh, the region was instrumental in understanding how should we be expanding our services um, globally, right? And we launched in UAE, I think in 2011-12, and the following 2 to 3 years after that, we launched in a bunch of geographies. A lot of them were successful, some of them were not. But I think, and Middle East was the first step outside of India for us, and it was a great um, learning um, learning experience for us.
All right. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for the enlightenment. So, if we speak about your new venture, Mindhouse, so what was
Yeah,
your core mission behind launching Mindhouse in the UAE? So, please take us deeper into your expansion plans across the Middle East. Moving on.
sure. So just to introduce what Mindhouse does, Mindhouse is a mind body wellness platform which uses um, everyday wellness practices like meditation, yoga, nutrition to help customers or to help individuals not only lead a better quality of life, but also manage ailments and conditions which could be chronic in nature, or for women's health. So, and prenatal and postnatal, it's very well known that yoga and meditation help you through the journey. PCOS, you have hypertension, thyroid problems. For all of these, stress relief and yoga are known to be great um, management methods. And all of these, while they have come from India, there's a lot happening globally as well. And we saw that UAE as a market has a lot of stuff. Um, so today we are only live in the UAE. So I'll talk about that first and then talk about expansion further. UAE as a market, we saw a huge opportunity. Again, a tech savvy population, very high discretionary income. A large segment of the population is from the subcontinent. So there are similarities, and we're able to learn very quickly because of being based in India. And I think on top of it, there is a very heavy push from the ecosystem, from uh, the establishment, the government to promote um, tech and to promote the startup ecosystem. So all of these things put together really help startups grow much faster than anywhere else. And in the future, we're looking at expanding to the rest of the region. Obviously, being in India, the first preference becomes English-speaking population, and then we localize our services to the regional languages. But we are looking to expand further to the regions around UAE and further in the Middle East and North Africa region. It's very important for us.
All right. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for joining in today and enlightening us on how did you expanded Zomato and Mindhouse to the UAE and other parts of the MENA region. So I think for the audience and for the applicants of INDO-MENA Corridor, it's nothing new that we have a big case in front of us that unicorns like Zomato are expanding to the Middle East, and now they are coming up with new ventures as well, and having same sort of a synergy for their companies to grow and expand and create inspiration for the new ones. So moving on, thank you so much for joining in today, Pankaj. We are really honored to have you in here with us today. And let us move ahead with our next set of a session with our ecosystem partners, Microsoft for Startups and StartupScale360. So starting with you, Roberto. So first of all, how are you and how it's been going for you and Microsoft for Startups entirely?
Thank you, Asib, and great meeting you and sharing the panel with Pankaj and Swethal today. Very good, thank you. I mean, it's been intense here. We have been working on setting conditions for launching new programs this year, and we are looking forward, excited about the journey ahead. This corridor with bringing together India and MENA, I mean, bringing together two ecosystems, and it's a great initiative. So we are definitely happy to support this. And the general openness you see now in the UAE, the recent opening with Israel, the opening with normalization back again with Qatar, and new things happening are giving signs of hope as well, to get more stability in the region as well, and positioning UAE also as a hub, a regional hub, where it makes sense to have these interconnections, right, with different ecosystems. So definitely looking forward to the next steps for the Indo-MENA Corridor, and looking forward to the next initiatives that we are launching for startups.
All right, thank you so much, Roberto. So starting with first ground question for you. So as you already know that the Indian startups are garnering big time attention from the Middle East and the venture capital firms, India-focused venture capital funds, especially from the UAE. We as a publisher come across around 4 to 5 deals happening between India and the UAE alone every month. And so according to you, what's the cornerstone basis to this startup ecosystem relationship between India and the UAE?
Look, it's a very good point. Thank you for asking, because I will start telling you pre-COVID, and actually it was my last trip, or no, the second last. I went to Bangalore, and there was the NASCOM in end of November 2019, right? So, and it was a great experience for me, because I was exposed with a number of players in the ecosystem, a lot of founders, startups, could feel the vibe, of the ecosystem there, really exciting. And I can tell you, 9 out of 10 conversations with founders I was introduced is, we are considering to expand in the Middle East, and I heard you are the guy in the Middle East for Microsoft. So how can we work together? How can you help us? What's the business? What the business look like there? Any advice, and so on and so forth. So I would say organically, I can tell the interest is there. And why is that? I guess the UAE has been investing ahead of time to build, modern infrastructures across, if you look at the countries across the region, but also building an ecosystem that, of course, is still earlier stage than what you have in India or other mature ecosystems, but building those components that are critical to have a startup ecosystem, right? So whether in terms of regulation or in terms of government as well, making it easier for startups to develop from here, and having a long-term vision of positioning UAE as a hub in the region for startups that want to expand across the region. The usual route is startups that set office here, and then they expand when they prove there is market fit. They expand in more developed market or more mature market, or market with larger population, if you want, for example, Saudi. The other component, I think Pankaj touched base on this, I guess, is if you think about it, 42% of the population in the UAE is from India, right? So there is, of course, there is a natural immediate synergy there, and India is 2 hours, 2.5 hours flight, is close by. So there are all the elements of proximity, of cultural presence, of being at the right time, given that the government here is doubling down on opening up and investing and attracting startups to also move here and doing business from here for the region. So all these elements concur to build the right infrastructure, I would say, to make sure that this corridor is really happening. And I'm impressed because India started building the ecosystem earlier on, right? So it's probably 30 years now that India has been started with the offshoring of IT and building talent that understand tech, and then more engineers and talents that can build the products and solutions. So and the UAE also with the taxation, the convenient taxation that is offering, and more initiatives coming to make it easier doing business and building startups from here, and the access to markets as well, is definitely a desired location for startups that are willing to expand. The mindset in the startup ecosystem in India is there already to think global or to solve real problems that can scale. So definitely Dubai comes a natural evolution for startups that want to expand across the Middle East region.
All right, thank you so much for a really, really worthwhile answer, Roberto, because you made a point on taxation, and I believe that's one really, really cornerstone thing that why Indian startups are actually hunting for the UAE, and it's all about the taxation and liberal policies by the governments. So moving on with Swethal. So how are you, Swethal? I'm so glad to have you here, and we are really honored as LAFFAZ Media to have you here. So how has it been, and what are you been planning or launching these days?
Great, thanks, Asif. Thanks for having me here. And before I start anything, I want to first, comment on Roberto's point that if somebody has reached out 9 out of 10 to say that he's a man for the Middle East, I totally agree to that. I mean, he's one of the most active persons in the startup ecosystem, and definitely is a go-to person. First of all, congratulations, Hasif and Pradeep and LAFFAZ team for launching these amazing initiatives of IMC. I think this is much needed. And last year, I was actually in India covering 5 cities. In fact, when I left Mubadala, I wanted to explore the whole Indian ecosystem itself. Being here there, in the Middle East for quite a long time. So I always heard a lot of things happening in India. As you know, that India is one of the most fastest growing ecosystem, 3rd largest in the world. So of course, there was a lot of, basically I wanted to understand what's going on. So I covered like 5 cities, starting from New Delhi, Mumbai, Kochi, Hyderabad, and Bengaluru. And I realized that, whenever I talk to a lot of people, their key stakeholders, the startups, one thing is which I found that pretty much, when startups in India, when they want to go global, they have like US, Europe, or Southeast Asia. Those are the regions are pretty much in their, the next go-to market. But whereas when it comes to Middle East, perhaps either it's not there in their list or maybe somewhere in the bottom, right? That's because there's a lack of awareness. They don't, haven't seen like, the Middle East is really like top priority. But over the period, we have seen that people realize that because of the amount of investments coming from Middle East to India, even like how Mubadala contributed to, Indian startup ecosystem and creating a unicorns through SoftBank Vision Fund. Literally 9 unicorns from India was like, we are probably say that, it's Mubadala has contributed via SoftBank Vision Fund. So there's a lot of people realizing that, yeah, there is a market, there is a, huge capitals, and hence there is something definitely needed. And I also wanted to really kind of work on bridging the gap, so that's sort of a gap between India and Middle East. And that's where actually we came bump into each other, and we realized that I think this is a much needed initiative, and what you guys are doing is really most important. There's a lot of awareness needed. If you look at Dubai or Abu Dhabi, UAE in general, pretty much with Etihad or Emirates, you are well connected across the globe, right? And within 6 hours of journey, you can easy to target like 3 billion populations. This is the beauty of this, like strategically located between India subcontinent and EMEA. And you can easy to expand from Middle East, especially from UAE as a soft landing to enter into the other market in the Middle East. So I think this particular initiative would give a lot of opportunity for Indian startups to entering into MENA, as well as a MENA startup also to look at India as another good opportunity, market for the next opportunity for them to expand.
And if may I comment on this point, Asib, because it's very important. I like that. So the corridor is not one way, right? So it's two ways. So definitely, the first things that comes to mind is definitely the Indian startup ecosystem is already kind of developed and advanced, sophisticated, deep tech technologies that are used, and there are great solutions. So definitely it comes natural to think that Indian startups are expanding to the MENA, Dubai as a soft land, expand to other countries in the Middle East, for sure. But what Swethal just mentioned, I would love to repeat it because it's a strong message as well to our ecosystem here in MENA, which is raising a bit the ambition and looking, there is a market close by that is India, that is 1 billion people population. So we always complain that scaling through MENA is tough, and it is. If you are a fintech in the region, think about it. We have probably 4 or 5 regulations with the lost account in the UAE only, and then you need to expand in the other countries in the Middle East, right? So it takes time and effort. Whereas if you build and there are ideas that can be built here and then scaled back to India as well, I would love to see more of that as well in terms of mindset thinking, opportunities, and I believe this corridor is a unique opportunity to develop more of these as well.
Thank you so much for the wonderful addition to that. And on a broader level, it seems like really ambitious thing, like you said it right. And corridor is not one way, it's two way, obviously. But when we launch something, and we always focus on the market who is actually emerging and they are in need of another ecosystem. But it's a bright enlightenment for me as running a media platform. It's a big enlightenment for me. And obviously, yes, we will be working together on this, and moving forward, we will be shape it further and make it more brighter for all startups across both MENA and India. So coming back to Swethal, on a broader level, Swethal has obviously given us really bright aspects of building this corridor. But Swethal, if I go into certain kind of specifics, and if I, as an Indian startup, ask you what are your suggestions for any Indian startup, any tech startup in India to expand to the UAE or MENA region as a whole? So any specifics, some suggestions you would like to give?
Actually, if any startup, whether it's coming from India or anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter. It's most important is that they need to first ask themselves that, first of all, are you able to prove some success in your own local market or regional area, right? Before even going expanding to different regions. And then what problem you're solving in your local regions, can it be replicated, or can you bring that similar formula to Middle East or any other part? So I think that's something they need to first ask, these big questions. And if this is let's say if a Middle East, if the problem is they're solving, and if this can be very much solved at Middle East at the right time, at whatever stage they are. It doesn't matter whether you're the early stage or a growth stage. This is the thing is that your technology solution is able to solve the regional problem. Maybe I can give share some example that would help to kind of answer these questions properly. So, for example, I was speaking with Volopay's. Volopay is a recently well-funded seed stage. It's a Y Combinator startups, and I was speaking with the founder Rajit, and he's basically was sharing his experience that they found a startup from India. They become a YC, startups entered into Singapore and expanding to very quickly to Australia, right? Now, they also realize that they're at a seed stage, but they know that they have a potential because they are solving a global problem, right? And they know that they have a good technology solution, they have a good teams, they have a pretty much great strategy, so they can even kind of come even into the Middle East market. And they know that if they don't come now, somebody will come, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say that he identified that problem which he's solving is a global problem, so it can, they can come to Middle East, and hence one of the ways to enter is that find a right partner, and they realize that they can partner with another startup, which is NIMCard, which recently raised $7 million, and they found that there's a card issuance perfect synergy. They have identified the financial institution perfect synergy with them, so they felt okay, even though they are at a seed level, they can enter into the market through the right partner and the right support. The other example is there, like say, I've spoken with another startup called String Bio, well funded in India. That's it's a biotech company. So the founder Vinod, he was saying that he wants to enter into Middle East because he knows the regional problem he's going to solve. And what is the regional problem here? One of the most critical problem is to solve the food security, water security, all those challenges, right? Which is because we are Middle East predominantly is a desert area. We're really looking to some sort of a desert technology, and this technology can solve the food problem, right? Because they produce a protein from methane gas, that can be useful for animal feeds, human feeds, anything like. So they are ready because they feel that they can come to the Middle East to solve the regional problem, right? Sometimes you have a good solutions, but you feel that it may not be right fit for the regional, but sometimes you need to find a different strategy. So I have another startup which even actually invested personally, a company called Bluesmart based out of New Delhi. Now Bluesmart is actually it's a all India's all electric vehicle ride hailing company, right? And they are actually building the entire ecosystems of charging stations, putting the electric vehicle on the platforms, and pretty much growing fast in this in the Delhi NCR region. And this they identified that if they have to kind of replicate this model, they have to build the ecosystem, right? The complete entire ecosystem of the charging infra and the vehicle and the partner, all those guys to go hand in hand. Whereas then Puneet, one of the founders, he called me and Swethal, hey, tell me, should I come to Jitex? He asked me, is there any benefit of coming to Jitex? I said, yeah, it's a great platform. It's a great technology. When you should visit Jitex and see, because you will able to understand the market, and you can even connect to the investor and connect to different players. So he visited here and we had a talk. And they quickly realized that this model, what they're doing in New Delhi, they cannot replicate here, because this is completely different market. And hence they are looking at re-strategizing, looking at a different business model to kind of expand, which I cannot disclose now. But what I'm trying to say is that if you have to come to a market like Middle East, you need to find out, what exactly you're going to solve the problems and how you will do that.
So thank you so much for a wonderful answer, Swethal. So I believe Indian talent is and the innovation that Indian startups are creating is they are worthy enough to tap into the Middle East market unless and until they find a regional problem. So moving on for Roberto. So Roberto, something really specific to Microsoft for Startups Middle East. So there's no doubt that Microsoft for Startups is doing a commendable job in the Middle East. But in order to create a complete know-how for any Indian startups who are trying to expand to the Middle East, or only the MENA-based startups who are looking forward to have Microsoft's backing to get themselves established and grown further, we would like to know what are the startup stages, key sectors, and regions that Microsoft for Startups Middle East serves.
Sure, that's absolutely, that's a great question. So basically, what we are implementing here, it's a long-term strategy where in the short term we basically set presence here in the region a year ago. We have a global program. And we have been working to recruit and select startups from this region as well that are a fit for the global program. Now, the global program is very much focused on B2B enterprise solutions, enterprise startups that are at a later stage because they maybe are already generating revenues and they're already backed by institutional funding. So the criteria to access are selective, and while a startup will join the program, basically we will help them with access to technology, whether it's in the form of credits for building on Azure or licenses of other products that might be relevant for them, from CRM Dynamics to Power Platform, Power BI, GitHub Enterprises, and so on and so forth. Together with a layer of support to either migrate their solution or build the right architecture, thinking about the scalability of the product that they're building, maybe optimization of the costs and integrations with third parties. On the other hand, we help startups at this stage with what we think that they most need at that stage, which is scaling and growing and scaling across potentially different markets, other markets, potentially on a global scale. So we have what we call a co-sell program, which is nothing more than a journey where at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to help startups move from being market ready to being enterprise ready. And in this journey, we have some milestones where we help startups to first publish their solution on the Microsoft Marketplace, which is an engine they can use to promote their solution and services, to offer trials until they get to a stage in the marketplace that we call transactable, where basically they are able to set SaaS pricing, a go-to-market strategy, and from there get more traction with clients, potentially tapping into markets where at that stage they do not necessarily have a business development, right? And from there, the ones that get to that stage and get traction, we try to get them to become partners. This is what we call co-sell ready. So startups that get to that stage basically are transactable on the marketplace, have traction with clients. We make them partners, so they become a solution, an IP that also our teams or our partners can sell to their corporates. So we try to extend the sales of the startup that are co-sell ready to our corporate clients. And there is also an incentive for our sales team to do that. And the reason for that is because when startups, when our teams, work with corporates, of course, they are mainly commercial teams, so of course they have the mandate to position and sell Microsoft solutions. But most of the times, the narrative at the very highest level with the C-level of the companies is all about the digital transformation agenda, right? So, in those conversations, in those scenarios, we are exposed to a number of situations, scenarios, use cases, challenges that corporates are facing, where it's 100% clear that you cannot solve those with just selling Microsoft products, right? So it's not about Dynamics, it's not about Outlook, it's not about Microsoft 365 and so on and so forth. It's about understanding the solution needed to solve those use cases. And chances are that some startups somewhere in the world, they've already maybe figured that out, and they already have solutions that can solve specifically for those challenges or use cases, or they have products that can be adapted to solve for those use cases, right? So the value proposition behind giving the access to corporates we have either directly or through partners is to bring innovation to corporates, thus being a long-term partner to them, while giving more business to startups that get through this journey, thus being more partner to them, while both entities will develop more on Microsoft technology. So there is also an incentive for the Microsoft broader organization to develop this ecosystem. Is an ecosystem play. This is for startups, as we said. I started from the end. These are startups that are later stage. Now, a year from since we started operating in this region, and honestly, even before starting, we realized that this ecosystem is at large, is an earlier stage ecosystem. So definitely, we have selected and we have startups that already are there, but the majority of startups in MENA are also a few steps earlier than what would qualify them for entering into the global program. So what we worked on, and we have already announced it in January, and we are launching this in the coming months, is we are launching an accelerator program where we will select startups that do not qualify for the global program. We will also select startups, of course, continuously that will get into the global program. But we will focus on this accelerator program on startups that are earlier stage than what we usually select in the global program, to work hands-on with them for a period of time, like a virtual accelerator program, but with mentorship and with an angle of helping enterprise solutions to tap into corporate and how to work with corporates, and having corporates as well involved into this initiative. And we will have 2 cohorts per year, 15 startups per cohort. There will be more announcements, public announcements in the coming weeks and months. So this is, for us, this is an effort to tap into startups that are earlier stage, but build a pipeline for the future, right? And also create stories where we can showcase how we can help startups either increase their revenues, so build on the technology, but also on the go-to-market, or get funded, so offering, of course, exposure to investors in the region. And longer term, we have a vision of tapping more into youth with specific programs to change a bit the mindset, share more about what entrepreneurship really is, what the mindset of an entrepreneur is, what it takes to build a tech startup, and partner with other education, with our education team and other education institutions to touch the students, so have a broader impact across the region, but then create a funnel, right? So to move the students we touch from the ideation to incubation, acceleration, and so on and so forth. So this is a little bit the vision. These are the different stages we tap into. Then, of course, happy to, if you have any further questions, to go into details. Oh, you asked also about the industries. So in principle, we are agnostic in the sense that wherever we see founders and startups that are really trying to solve real problems, where technology could be and is a key component to help them build the product and scale it, of course, it's interesting for us. And we try to build product and technology that is an underlying layer for everyone else to build on top. Thus, for us, it's about empowering everyone, right? So in my case, in the case of startups, I would say every founder. But of course, then naturally, every ecosystem have more abundance of other resources or competencies or specific industries that are more relevant for the region, right? So definitely, I can tell in this region, we are working a lot with financial services, so fintechs, with retail, with clean tech, or more and more we will work with desert tech and agri-tech. So we believe sustainability environment will be a key focus area. Education is a big sector, a big industry for Microsoft, as well as healthcare, manufacturing, logistics as well. We have a lot of startups that are building great solutions on there. But again, we are agnostic, but there are, of course, areas where also we can tap into the broader Microsoft as an organization, because there are industries where Microsoft might have developed specific solutions. For example, when it comes to agri-tech, there is the solution called FarmBits, Azure FarmBits, which is built on the cloud to connect the data across different partners that can provide data as a service to startups that are building solutions for agri-tech, so that they can build on top of it and tap into machine learning models and AI in a kind of easier way. FarmBits is there, a solution that is specific to startups. It's not specifically part of Microsoft for Startups program, but is something that Microsoft can offer. Definitely, there is value for agri-tech to tap into these kind of solutions, for example. We have similar solutions in healthcare, for example, or in education. So, and then, of course, there is also the integration with other products. We have a lot of edtechs that are asking potentially how they could integrate with Teams, and so on and so forth. So it's a combination of what is relevant for this specific region, what are the value proposition we can provide on top for startups, and what is available as well with the startups that are building this time in this region. But definitely we are willing. We see also a lot of founders that are investing more and more into social impact, and also we see a few investors now as well in this region that are trying to focus on social impact. We have a much larger project in India when it comes to social impact. So we are looking into it to develop something that makes sense also for this region. We think it's important looking ahead to empower social entrepreneurs to have the right platform as well to build in this region.
Thank you so much, Roberto, and really glad to know about that. You are also working with social impact firms and companies, and it's really, really great that you hear that. And I believe that's a big hope for startups in here in India who are working on solving world problems, human-centered problems. And so, Swethal, on similar lines, like if there is any Indian startup who is planning to expand to the Middle East, or Dubai or any particular region. So do you think that they have to sufficiently first domestically receive funds from Indian VCs and then try expanding to the MENA region? So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks for asking this, Hasib. Actually, I get this kind of a query every now and then, right? Because it's, there's a common inquiry that like, can I move to Middle East and I tap a fund? Yeah, you can do that, but it's not like you have a treasure box and you can draw gold from there and you can start pretty much very next day start your setting the shop here. So basically, here the investors typically, whether it's a sovereign funds, and in fact we have like 7 out of 10 sovereign funds of the world are actually in the Middle East only, right? And there are a lot of other funds are here. They are very much embrace the startup from different part of the geographies, including the government regulators, pretty much all the key stakeholders, whether it's innovation labs and all. Definitely they embrace startup coming to these regions. But one of the things which they look at that, are you just coming here to simply put a sales office of business development, or are you really serious about doing a business here, right, in the regions? When I say serious about doing a business, in the sense that, like, are you here to kind of create employment for the regions? Can you, bring innovations here so that generally the residents or the citizens can benefit from that, learn from that, right? Or how are you going to add value to the economy of the country? I mean, these are the things they typically look at, right? And actually that is where the pretty much, if you look at the top-down government mandates, right, there are a lot of amazing programs are there to welcome startup, rebate programs are there, incentives are there, innovations debts are there, to pretty much to, hey, anyone come here, we can help you to scale up your business, provide you all the right directions, do hand-holding to expand to these regions. Roberto mentioned that now it's the region is not just like a MENA, right? Now we can go to MENA-T, actually, MENA, Turkey, and Israel. So that's a great expansions of the regions. You can look at to the, not just within the UAE or to Saudi, you can further go deeper into the regions where you can kind of in the cross border of the Europe also. It's a great entry point to the Europe as well. So actually, if a startup, looking seriously to enter into this region, need to have a serious presence. That's my suggestions. And the question you asked whether they should be domestically funded or not, I think I give an example that, first of all, you need to say that, what problem you're solving, then you come. Yes, domestically funded, especially if it is a growth startup, it give a lot of confidence to investor that, yeah, you have done, you have showed some good traction at your local place, regional place, or within a country. And I think your growth startup, I think that's it. It can be pretty much easy to kind of come and expand to the region. So this, basically supporting the growth startup is much easier, right? So hence the raising the capital is also become much easier. The investor also look at investing such startup and supporting them to grow into this region. So that I would say. If I don't know if that answer your question properly, but generally I believe that if it is in a growth stage, entering to this region and tapping the fund is are possible. But if it is a early stage, if you have not much tractions, I think it's just wasting time here. So I think even if you have like domestically raised something, but there's nothing to prove here, if you have not proven in your local market, then it's a waste of money.
Yes, obviously that answers question, Swethal, and pretty much extensively, and the most simplest and the extensive way possible. It answers the question. And to be honest, that I myself had this question while I was starting LAFFAZ 2 years back. And then I just connected with many advisors. Not everybody was that good, and not everybody actually can solve this particular question, can answer this question in a moment of, you say, 2 to 3 minutes, and the problem has vanished. So I'm pretty much happy that that we have such advisors on board, and we have them as the ecosystem partners for INDO-MENA Corridor. And moving forward, we hope to solve such problems and such things and expansion plans. We can support them for any Indian startup looking forward. And so let's just move on to our audience Q&A. So we have so many questions in here. So we will take only the ones in particular which are basically on a broader level, because we won't be taking any personal and some kind of a specific question going asked by any particular startup. But there are some good questions in here. And for anybody who's asking questions regarding the recording of this session, you'll see the live recording posted across all sessions, all the channels of LAFFAZ Media as soon as this webinar ends. And let's take a few questions from here. So I have one for you, Roberto. So the question is, the person is asking, we are a bootstrapped AI, artificial intelligence startup, and currently struggling to raise funds. Is there any program like Microsoft's AI factory for the Middle East?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. First of all, maybe for the benefit of the audience, I'm not sure everybody knows about AI Factory. AI Factory is a program that has been launched in France, Microsoft France. And the concept there is to focus, if I'm not mistaken, is every quarter, but periodically every 3 to 4 months on a specific industry, working with a corporate that is already a Microsoft customer, so a large corporate, where we have a good relationship because we have been working together to identify the challenges, the use cases, and so on and so forth. So it's basically then looking in the portfolio of startups that are working with us, startups that are a fit for developing a POC or working towards a solution to address the challenges that the corporate is surfacing. So far, the AI Factory has been working on green energy, on agri-food with Danone Group, on green agri-food, green energy, and mobility and financial services as well. Yeah. So, a few verticals, very focused, a corporate at a time, and a small cohort of startups to work towards that. This has not been launched. This is not a program that has been launched globally, but I mentioned before we are launching this accelerator here for the Middle East and North Africa region, and basically this accelerator will be mainly focused on enterprise and the corporate angle. So helping startups that have enterprise solutions to work with corporates and either solve specific challenges from corporates or connecting them to corporates in a meaningful way, and so on and so forth. So the whole experience will be geared towards B2B, towards go-to-market, towards on top of technology, and for sure. So it's not the same thing as AI Factory, but it's kind of similar in a way. The AI Factory was limited at one corporate at a time and one industry per time, right? So, and it was very much hands-on in terms of the resources needed to make it happen. So we are taking some of the learnings that the team in France got from that experience and is getting from that experience, considering also the structure, the maturity of this region, to bring here something that we think makes sense when it comes to having a great enterprise solutions that understand technology, but also understand how to tap into corporates, work with corporates. And of course, we will work also on the corporate side, which is one of the sweet spot Microsoft has in terms of connections, access to, and expertise, and real enterprise relationship, and so on and so forth. So we will have something similar in short. Not exactly the same thing, but we will launch with something that we think it makes sense. And of course, we will be open to feedback, and we will be open to iterate to make something that is going to be relevant for the region.
Thank you so much, Roberto. I hope that answers the question for the user. And it will be exciting to see a program similar to AI Factory moving on. So I have one other interesting question in here. I believe both Swethal and Roberto can answer this. So what's your advice for any UAE or MENA-based startups which are seeking expansion to in India? We go with you, Swethal, first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because like Robert also highlighted earlier that, we need to look at two-way corridors. It's not just a one-way. And here also, my experience, I've seen that in the startup from the UAE or generally from these regions, they look at expanding to typically in the MENA. They don't see India as a market. I mean, they know India, they understand India as a huge market, but pretty much they don't understand what is this market. It's like an elephant, for everyone here. But whereas when you look at the regions, they pretty much feel more comfortable. It's like a comfort zone for them because of the similar culture, similar language. There's language no barrier. There's like a pretty much at government level, there's a lot of bilateral relationships. So and you can freely move within the MENA regions. But when you look at India, it's just impossible for them to see that which part of India to crack, right? Because in India, if you look at like each state is like a country, right? I mean, if you simply put up the population of Delhi NCR, which is like 40 million, same as the size of Spain we are talking about. So how many Spain or how many like Germany you want to enter? So and India is a very diverse market. It's very difficult to kind of penetrate. Somebody if they had to enter into, let's say Mumbai, perhaps for them the market is not right market. For Mumbai is not a right market, but they could have actually entered in Hyderabad. Because even depend on how the government is supporting, what's the kind of startup landscapes are there. But by and large, if you look at India's startup landscape, has been evolved from its nascent stage to it's become the third largest, and MENA is still at a nascent stage. And if you look at in terms of the deals, and like pretty much last year 650 deals, something around we closed in India. But look at the amount injected is like $10 billion. The deal closed for $10 billion. Now here we have just crossed $1 billion, which is a historical figure. For MENA, we crossed $1 billion milestone, and that amount of funding happened in 2020. So we are talking about 10 times, right? So it's a one of the most complex market to enter. But that being said, within India also startups are like growing like anything. Like almost every year we are producing 50% kind of a growth in the startup. So far, like we see 40,000 plus registered startup. And the good side also that shows that there are like market is a huge, like it's immense opportunity for anybody who wants to enter into the market. Now within India, Indian startups are growing which means that overseas startup also need to enter and look at seriously penetrating into the market. And other also on the positive note, actually, if you see the ease of doing business in India also have significantly improved, right? I mean, there was a time when we were at 130 something in the rating. Now it's coming down to 60, 63, which itself shows that how government is looking to welcome. Each state has its own ecosystems. Each state is trying to do something. Down from south, from Kerala Startup Missions to Hyderabad T-Hub to Mumbai, Bangalore is a startup capital of India. Right to the top, what Delhi has to offer. So there's a lot of basically right. I would say there's a right platform to enter to this region. So hence, in my view, if any startup who's trying to enter from Middle East to India, I think they need to look at get in touch with the key stakeholders in those ecosystems, speak with them, and understand the market, study the market. Is this a right market for them to enter? There's an interesting story which I can share. So one of the startup which we are working very closely is DriveZ, and the guy is actually the founder is actually born and brought up here, in Middle East. When they decided to start DriveZ, there are also YC startups and very good cap table, amazing like internationals for investors. They found India as a market. So the guy from here, they born and brought up here, they went to India, they started, and they become, one of the India's largest car and bike rental platform. Very recently, another startup guy born and brought up from Abu Dhabi, they started, last week only, they started a company called Croci in New Delhi. Now, DriveZ started in Bangalore because they found the challenge in the Bangalore, because they found that's the right place. Whereas the Croci guy found the New Delhi is the right market. Now, because they're from Indian diaspora, they understand India market. I think they're able to kind of pivot to the right places, and they kind of navigate. They know how to navigate. But whereas if a Arab startup who wants to enter, I think it will be really difficult. So hence it's required, a lot of studies, understanding the market, doing in-depth analysis of each regions, and see that which particular state they should enter first.
All right. Thank you for the wonderful answer, Swethal. I believe we can call them as a case study. We can take them as well when the sessions moving on. And since they are born and brought up in Abu Dhabi and they are establishing their startups here in New Delhi, so it would be worthwhile to hear from them directly moving on. And any thoughts from you, Roberto, on similar aspect? Yeah, you need to unmute yourself, Roberto. Yeah, technology is actually, yeah.
Yeah, at least once. Yes. No, thank you. No, sorry for that. No, I think on this specific answer, Swethal gave a very clear description, right, of the thinking and what are some of the opportunities, but also some of the barriers or challenges when startups from here are trying to expand into India, and what is the current mindset as well, because not much of that is still happening. I would say yes. One thing is definitely spending time to understand the market. That's natural, right? That's important. I would just add on top maybe the importance of having the right partners on board in order to find a way to get into that market. Again, for example, on our side, on Microsoft side, we helped some of the startups, not necessarily only in the UAE. I have an example here in the UAE, a couple of examples of startups that are in Turkey that we help them to expand in India as well, because of the specific solution that they were selling, the competitive environment, and the contacts. For example, a couple of those are in the retail, and there were some major groups in India that were receptive of these specific ideas. So we were able to put them in touch, and as the startups were also in the co-sell program, so they were co-sell ready. So of course it came easier as well for having a local sales team involved to help in those conversations and closing also the deals. The reality is, yes, we have today we have most of the other flow, right? So we have a lot of startups from India that for the great work the team is doing there. Some of them are co-sell ready startups that are coming here. They want to expand, they want to get in touch, understand the market, the regulations. So we help with that, because when we see startups that have been through our program, we know the team that nurtured them. We understand how the solution would be beneficial for clients here. Definitely is something we are doing actively to help the startups that are interested into tapping into this market in that way. Other than that, I would say Swethal put it very, very nicely. It's more a matter, if you want, it's more also a matter of mindset and of finding the right go-to market for startups that are built here, and really look at India also as an opportunity. It's not just receiving the IPs and the solutions there, but it's also exporting, right? So it's a little bit lacking in general in this ecosystem yet, but we've seen a few cases in our situation, the startups that were in the program, that were able to tap back into the Indian market and get more business very, very quickly, and expand and set offices then back there in India as well. So I would say the channel and the corridor is open. So if you can, if you have a global partner that as well that you trust and is really adding value, then sometimes that can make things easier for startups in either one of the two locations to tap into the other location, because chances are that partner might have presence in both. And this is what we are trying ultimately to set across the region for startups that will be in our program, helping them to reach out to the different markets or enter new markets, where having a presence there, it's something that is built in the process, in the co-sell journey. So this is something that I would say is top of mind for us. Asit, you are on mute.
We can't hear you.
Oh no, then it's not. I cannot hear you. You can you hear him? Can you hear us, Swethal?
No, I can't hear Hasib. I can hear you very well.
It's weird because I see you unmuting yourself. Oh yeah, maybe it was just stuck.
I can ask you a question, Roberto, for the benefit of the users. So I know that like when we were at Hub 71, and we literally looking for you guys to come and support the startup over there. So can you update what's happening now in the what Microsoft for Startup is generally doing in these regions? How working with the key stakeholders like Hub 71 and with other players in this region?
No, absolutely, and glad you mentioned that. So we sign up this partnership with Hub 71 with the vision of helping Mubadala and Hub 71 in the vision of setting up a tech hub, a tech ecosystem, specifically in Abu Dhabi. So the hub, we're working closely with the hub in their mission. So we are empowering startups that join the hub when it comes to build on technology. Some of the startups are in regulated industries. So the unique advantage of Microsoft in the region is we have local data centers. So the startups in those industries can build on compliant solutions and secure products on local data centers, and beyond that, we have an approach of bridging the gaps and connecting the dots across the ecosystem, right? So in the hub, for example, we set up our reactor, which is a place where we host events, trainings, workshops, sessions, hackathons. Now, with the COVID, we had to turn everything virtual for now. So it's something everyone is living with, but the space is there. The willingness to develop the community is definitely there, and actually, the COVID accelerated the building of that community because all of a sudden, being everything virtual, we could tap into the broader region, right? So beyond UAE to offer these sessions and skill people and young people and developers and technical engineers and so on and so forth, and founders of course. So with the hub, the mandate is now renewed, meaning that we have this long-term approach. I mentioned that we extended our partnership in Abu Dhabi to also Abu Dhabi Investment Office, where we have a 5-year-long partnership now to execute some of the programs I mentioned before. So we are definitely strengthening even more the approach, the position, the focus in the UAE and in Abu Dhabi to extend also the benefits that eventually ADIO and or Hub 71 are able to provide to startups that are willing to either consider opening an office there or moving to Abu Dhabi to consider that a hub to develop across a broader Middle East and Africa region. So we are very happy about this partnership. We think it's going to be important for the ecosystem. We like the ambition of the UAE and Abu Dhabi to really attract startups to really try and develop an ecosystem. We like the fact that here government is really fast in making decisions, right? So whether it's updating policies, probably you've heard a number of announcements. I'm sure there will be more announcements going forward, either to make it easier and easier doing business here, but also setting the conditions, for example, to generate demand for startups and small medium businesses to offer entrepreneur, a scenario where they potentially can even fail, but have the confidence that they can build again, which has been missing largely in the past. But step by step, I see government is willing to change policies, to change regulations, to change laws to enable more of this. So it seems like the times are converging, are getting mature to get more out of this ecosystem. So this initiative is fantastic because it's happening at a time where all of this is happening. And again, in considering it's a two-way relationship, there might be a lot of synergies that can come out of there. Given that we are seeing in some industries, we're seeing some brilliant ideas here that would definitely deserve access to larger markets to accelerate their growth, accelerate their sales. So we're definitely committed to work with partners like yourself to identify those startups and give them this opportunity and spend energy and effort to deliver on the promise of what is the value proposition we have, which is connecting the startups to corporates.
Great, thanks. I totally agree that, and I totally believe that what UAE is doing generally for the region is just phenomenal, because this provide a perfect springboard for the startups coming to the regions to expand to MENA. It's one of the most liberal country in the MENA, and you can see the kind of the reform, and the government is willing to hear any suggestion, adopt the change, and you can see the changes happens also very fast, right? In fact, many things like you say, the startup which are in a regulated space also seen that how quickly they kind of adopted in this region, because the government are willing to hear them and say, hey, how can we help you to kind of establish yourself in this region? So I totally believe that, and I think the kind of support you're providing to not only hub but generally to the region is just amazing, and thanks for that. Sorry, Hasib, I had to take over your role briefly, but I'll pass on the baton to you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking up, guys, because I believe aliens were passing by my place at that very moment. But like I said, technology sometimes bashes us to the level that we cannot even imagine. So thank you for taking up. And I believe these actually have covered pretty much everything, and all the questions that we have got, most of them are covered pretty well by Swethal and Roberto. So just one thing, if we do a comparison between, like it's a user is asking whether they should try expanding to Bahrain or UAE, what sort of a comparison that can be done between these two nations in the MENA region? So anybody like Robert or Swethal, we would like to hear from both of you on this.
Look, it depends. I would say it depends on what's your go-to-market and the plan, right? So, and which clients or market you're really trying to tap into. The markets are slightly different. Bahrain is doing a lot, despite being a smaller ecosystem or a smaller market in size and in population compared to UAE, but is doing a lot when it comes to startups and SMEs. So definitely the environment, the ecosystem there is vibrant and is connected. So it's a great ecosystem. I would say it depends on I would say your go-to-market, right? Because most of the if you are an enterprise solution, for example, most of the headquarters of corporates most of the times is sits here in the UAE. So that usually would sound as the natural choice, as a starting point, as a soft landing from where to expand further, right? But maybe for what you're building, either there is specific connections or industries that are receptive of that solution in Bahrain, why not? Usually UAE for the speed of executing things, for this more the scale and the access to, and the fact that you have the headquarters of many corporates or agencies or partners and so on and so forth. Usually is an easier place to start from if your aim is to then expand it further across the region. But definitely there might be specific industries, situations, connections, network that would bring you to Bahrain first. For example, I know for sure in Bahrain that they're doing an amazing job. Also on the fintech side, there is a lot of development there as well in the community and so on and so forth. But the same you could say also in the UAE with ADGM or the IFC, whether it's Dubai or Abu Dhabi. So I think it boils down to your go-to-market strategy, your plans ahead, just before not just the immediate next step, but the step after, and how you're planning your growth in the coming years, and then of course the industry and the solution that you are building.
Thank you so much, Roberto, on this. Any thoughts from your end, Swethal?
No, I think I totally agree that I think every country in this region has their own offerings, right? I mean, every government is trying to do something to kind of attract startup in the ecosystems. I think Bahrain very strong in fintech, definitely. I was speaking with Brink, the country head for the MENA, and he was saying that they are not only just doing on fintech, but they are also trying to do something in IoT hardware and agri-tech, right? So on food technology. So there is actually it's startups to choose where they want to come, right? Bahrain also provide a perfect landing platform. We could be biased because living in the UAE, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we spend most of the time. But it's the region has a lot of offerings. I mean, I was speaking with ISS, a fund of Jordan. They are saying that we welcome a startup there, and we can provide any sort of incentives, or we fund the startup if they're coming and starting their business from there, setting up incorporating the business there. So I think it's all depend on what basically startup want, where to start. But yeah, if you look at the statistic, I totally agree that there are a lot of headquarters of startups are based out of the UAE. I think as far as I know, 33 out of top 50 startups are headquartered from the UAE. And in terms of the deal size, also, if you look at 68% of the deal last year actually has been done by UAE, Saudi, and Egypt. So Egypt could be, by the way, also a good landing platform, right? I mean, so it's all depend on. To be honest, I don't want to say that like UAE is the only platform or landing platform. It's all depend on country by country, what's their offering and what startup feel comfortable to.
All right. Yes, definitely agree, Swethal, that UAE is not the only platform in the MENA region. Like Bahrain is really doing good in terms of regulations and policies regarding fintech startup expansions. And obviously, me and Fatima from EntroPR, we were previously discussing this about various fintech startups requests that we get on our platform. So it was already also a new thing for me to understand that Bahrain is also a good bright light for any startups from foreign nations looking forward to expand if they are a fintech startup. So I believe that answers the question for the user. And before winding up with the session, I would like to tell everybody that unlike any traditional accelerator, INDO-MENA Corridor is open throughout the year, throughout 2021. So if you haven't applied already, please apply and get your exclusive chance to grab the perks that we have involved. You will get 3 months of Mindhouse subscription free of cost, and all the tools that you need, like APIs, email marketing tools, or whatever, cloud hosts and cloud calling platforms like Zevo. So all offers are listed on Indo-UAE Corridor. Just visit the platform, apply, and get your chance. So before signing off, I again would like to thank Pankaj for coming on board as a keynote speaker and enlightening our audience and creating a base for this complete INDO-MENA Corridor thing that we have established and backing it with facts and numbers. And to our ecosystem partners, Microsoft for Startups, Roberto, 360 Swethal. Thank you so much for joining in today, and thank you, audience, our partners, UINSET, EntroPR, Paid Apps. Thank you so much for supporting and empowering us. See you all in the next episode of INDO-MENA Corridor very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.